What's poppin', everybody? Welcome to another installment of our comic book club. I am here with my main man, Dolan. We're going to be a dynamic duo tonight. So a couple of things came up with some of the other fellow guys, and they can't make it, but that's okay. And honestly, we'd already moved this once. I did not want to move it again. Because then it would be the never ending, when are we going to get the Swamp Thing book to? But we have plenty to talk about tonight. We got plenty to cover. And Drew and I are nerdy enough. We're going to rock this out on our own. But real quick, Drew, how are you doing tonight, man?
I am fantastic. It was a terrific day. I just shared with you a piece of exciting information. I can't share it yet. Josh Yapook, you know who it is. You know what they're doing. It's very exciting.
Indeed.
It's huge. So yeah, just gonna keep everyone in suspense till then. But
Suspense.
It's been a very, very great day. And on top of that, I been rereading the legendary Saga of the Swamp Thing run by Alan Moore. It's just, never gets old. Never.
It really doesn't. I'm not gonna lie. I picked this up to reread it again just the other day, and I was like, I don't know if I feel like reading this. And the moment I started reading it, I was just like, yep, nope, we're going for a good while. So I spent a good chunk of the night just going through it again. And it's just we're gonna gush on it as we go through the book, but so much good stuff. So
yeah, great stuff.
I will say, if you haven't read book one, we did cover this a couple of months ago for, I think, our first independent book that we did out of the gates. So you should definitely go check that. I mean, chill out with us here. But if you haven't read the book one, or if you didn't catch it, go check that out. By all means, read the book. It's definitely worth it. And then you can always come back and party with us here and see what we have to say for book two. But before we jump into this story for tonight, I do want to highlight some comments real quick. We do have Mrs. The Queen of Horror herself, Nadia, and she's got her channel Horror with Nads. I think they're doing actually a big crossover special, her and Leon tonight. So check that out after you check on our show.
Sorry to interject real quick, but whenever I hear the name Leon, I can't help but think of Resident Evil 2. And toward the end of the game, I forget it's Ada says Leon. Like, toward the end of the game, I just can't help. Every time I hear the name Leon, that's the first thing that comes to mind. Sorry.
I mean, it sounds since I know Leon, it sounds like how he would say his own voice. So he's not gay. We just like to give him shit and pretend like he's gay. But no, Nadia's coming in with $5, and she says, "I love this book, but I love Josh more. Here's $5. Don't spend it on a whore." Hey, poetry people.
Yeah.
Poetry.
Yes.
Well, I think that since you're delivering the goods, some $5, we will we'll go ahead and give you a little bit of this.
I'll show you the tool that's most important to our survival, but fair warning, it's my penis.
Indeed.
So speaking of Chevy, I was rewatching a Law and Order episode on Disney Plus that he was in. That it's clearly lifted from the Mel Gibson headlines when he got the whole sugar tits thing, the voicemail and everything. Yep. Oh, it was a rough episode, very rough. But but he rebounded quickly.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Also in the chat, we do have Cajun Corey, as always, here with the evening. Corey, how are you doing? We have Jamin D in the house giving a rock on. What's up, Jamin? It is nice to see you here. We've got Gooch in the house. Gooch, I've got to get you. I mean, I know you're more of an animation guy, but I got to get you on some of these streams. We'll have to find out what comics you like. So if we come up to them, we can loop you in. I've got to reach out to Erwin as well, man. Like, he'd be great for this. We have Kaiser Jose in the house. Sup, fellow nerds. I'll stick around for a bit, but I may have to catch the replay. So I have a Kaiser story real quick. Because I was on Wes's channel Saturday morning, and then Kaiser was in the comments talking to us. And Drew, guess where he went? I think it was either Friday or Saturday. Guess where he went?
Vegas.
No, Rockin' Robbie's comic shop.
Bullshit.
He did. He did. And Robbie.
Please tell me he said. Please tell me he said he was full of shit. Please tell me he told Robbie to his face he's full of shit.
I don't know if he saw him and spoke to him, but he did take pictures of Robbie's recommendations. He's got a recommendation stand in the shop. So I need to send you that because it was freaking hilarious. So I was having a grand old time seeing that. Yeah, look, he's like, oh wait, you did go, or you did actually see him there?
He did actually tell me he's full of shit.
Or that, or that. Your recommendations suck, man.
Yeah.
Or you should have just said, "Oh, Robbie was not there." Boo.
Oh, boo.
What a loser. But yeah, no, I was like losing it while he was sending me that stuff. So good times. Real quick to wrap this up, we do have Gooch coming in with hit the like button. Yes, hit the like, share on Twitter, whatever you need to do. Excuse me, I'm drinking a Dr. Pepper, which is a mistake apparently. We have Cannoli Sasquatch. Hello, sexy John. Hello, Cannoli. How are you, man? Cannoli's another one we need to get on here at some point, since he's kind of like, breaking through. He's broke through the virgin wall of reading comics. Like he went gangbusters.
Broke through the hymen of yes. Just
indeed.
It. Just straight up. Just rammed right through.
Yep. And then he said this run of books was recommended to him when he first started reading comics. Just fantastic. Completely agree.
Man, I think that's jumping into the deep end. If this you start reading, holy crap.
Well, Cannoli's also like read the amount of books he's probably read in the past year is what some people probably read in like five years.
So he's like Keanu in the Matrix.
Oh, he has been flying through like omnibus, just like douche. So part of me is like, bro, slow down because you're gonna start getting to shitty things soon.
Yeah, exactly. Slow down, savor it. It's like
take it in.
It's like being at a fine steakhouse. You want to savor the taste of that steak. This isn't fast food, right? This is a savory steak. Enjoy it.
I will say, Drew, so when we did book one, we really did talk about how this book has like a legendary status and is revered by so many people just because of how good it is, especially the time that it came out. And we all kind of shared like our thoughts kind of going into it. Since we did that previously, and this is a continuation of the series, we're going to skip that and kind of jump right into it. But I think the big thing from book one was really that change that Alan Moore did where Alec Holland learns that he's not really Alec Holland, that he actually is a plant. And the anatomy lesson was a pinnacle issue for so many reasons. I mean, the subject matter, the theme of identity, the art in it, all excellent stuff. And we kind of get to continue that here in this book. And the first thing that we deal with, and we have a guest artist coming in, which a little bit of a bummer, but it's fine.
He does a solid backup. He's a solid backup. You got your starting quarterback, you got your Peyton Manning. He's a solid. He's a good backup, and he
agreed.
It's fine. What's kind of I'll say this at the time, because if you look at the cover, you look at the byline on the cover, it says by Alan Moore, Stephen Bissette, and John Totleben. You're thinking, oh fuck yes, and it's like, oh no, building a house of lies. No, they did the cover. But honestly, this is due to deadlines. They just fell behind. That's the reason why.
Hey, and fair, like if there's an issue to do that with, I do think it's this issue because it's very much self-contained and standalone. I mean, it deals with.
I would say there's a certain issue where we get to like a certain space alien. I think that was the issue where I think you could use it with a film. Maybe it's in volume 2. And volume 3 or 4 later on.
No, it's in this one. It's in
this one. Oh, yep, there it is. Yeah, I think that's the fill-in. That's the one where it's like, okay, yeah, we don't.
Yeah, well, so they had a fill-in artist for that too, but
yes, they did. Yeah.
I mean, if we had to do it earlier, I'm glad it's this before we get into the arcing stuff with like Abigail and all that. But this
it's actually the same artist who did this one, Sean McManus. He did this one. He did that one.
And didn't he do the earlier run before?
No, that was Bernie. I think Bernie Wrightson did.
Right, that was Wrightson.
Yep, he did the first 10 or so.
Yeah.
After that, he may have done some fill-ins after that, maybe. Not sure.
Yeah, possibly. But no, so this issue kind of picks back up with Swamp Thing coming to terms with the fact that he is not actually Alec Holland. It's him really kind of accepting the fact that he is his own kind of plant creature, and that the memories he has are just that, memories, but they're not his memories. But what I really liked about this issue was just kind of this idea of humanity and how we treat the dead and what's right. So Swamp Thing goes back to where he was created, essentially, and where Alec Holland died, and makes a point to try to find the body so he can bury the body, the skeleton. And that's what we get here. And that's really just all this is this idea. And you see it in the lines here, like, down here in the cold, all these dark years, you must have been lonely. Come, I have prepared a place for you. And I think in some ways it's Swamp Thing finding peace within himself, but also understanding like that the real Alec Holland deserves a respectful burial, a respectful death. So.
Yeah, it's acceptance. This honestly, that's what I mean. I would, besides the burial, I would have called this acceptance. Yeah, because he is accepting now that he is no longer Alec Holland. Alec Holland is dead. He is his own thing. He is his own person now. He is, and that's what I love about the end of it. You know, he doesn't look back. He's moving forward. There's no more looking back. Alec is in the past. We are on our own path now, story-wise and character-wise. And is very brave for Alan Moore to do that. And it's a beautiful ending to the character of Alec Holland, because we all know he was murdered brutally, and this is him, you know, giving him a proper burial, and it's a beautiful issue.
Indeed. There's even some like slight flashbacks here of the events that led to his death. So, you know, if you didn't read the original issues before Alan Moore took over, it kind of recaps some of that. But you also have the spirit of Alec Holland that shows up and kind of shows his gratitude towards Swamp Thing for you know, doing this. And the interesting thing is, like, I feel like this sets up two very interesting conversations that we will get into later. But one, this isn't the last time we're going to see Alec's spirit. And also, you know, the fact that we are for sure, without a doubt, there is no question saying Swamp Thing is not a human being, and he is for sure a plant being, brings up some interesting topics of conversation by the time we get to the end of this book. But
say by the time we get to, I don't know how many issues down the run, when we get to Gotham City, that's going to be bringing up a lot of questions and a lot of situations.
Oh yes, for sure. But moving on, I do think what really kind of kicks this book off, because this book, book 2, is kind of like book 1, where you have this first issue that kind of just deals with what was happening before and kind of wraps that up and then keeps it going. And then this feels like where we really kind of continue the story. We have the original art team coming back in, and it's love and death. And, you know, Alan Moore has this tendency to tell his stories in a non-linear form, and that's what we get in this issue. We start off with Abigail, like you can see here, she is like traumatized. You see a wound on her shoulder. You hear her talking about the smell of rot and death and bugs, and how she's trying to clean herself of it, but you don't know what happened. And it's almost like she herself can't fully remember what happened, and she's trying to sort back through that trauma to figure out what happened. This, for me, is one of the most interesting and entertaining parts of this book from a character level.
I will say it's not on the banner yet of the comic yet, where it says sophisticated suspense, but this issue earns the banner sophisticated suspense, because I love the subtle horror in this book that the artists put in here. It's in the backgrounds and everything. It's like, if you look closely, it's like, wait a minute, is that a dead body? Is that a skull? But a little fun fact, since I have the absolute edition of Saga of the Swamp Thing, they've got the behind the scenes notes, and they talk about this issue in particular, and how this issue, so what's very funny about this is that in the absolute edition, it shows the cover with the Comic Code Authority on it. But when this hit the stands, it did not have the Comic Code Authority. It did not meet the Comic Code Authority approval, because I guess apparently the Comic Code, they completely disagreed. They did not approve of the narrative of this issue at all. Dick Giordano, who was the DC's representative of the Comic Code Board, he was also one of the most the Cooper School teachers, blah, blah, blah. In any case, the executive decision was made to publish the issue without the code seal of approval, unaltered, once the comic hit the stands. The response was overwhelmingly positive. Readers loved it, and sales grew as word spread among comic and horror fandom that we'd lost the code. So this was like the punk rock issue of DC Comics. This is the one that I think catapulted into superstardom.
Agreed. Because I think the thought process was, well, if you don't go with the code, and if you publish something they didn't approve, then you're going to get a lot of negative attention. And maybe it started that way. Maybe there was a scoffing of, oh my God, they published something without the code's approval. But it did the exact opposite. I feel like this is what really hooked people in, because the start of Alan Moore's Swamp Thing wasn't a huge hit out of the gate. Nope. It took a while, it was slowly kind of gaining some favor, but it took a little while to get momentum. And I think this brought so many eyes to it, and people started asking so many questions that then they started really kind of falling in love with the book.
Yeah, and clearly, according to I think this is Stephen Bissette's words, it was this issue. This is the one that really got everyone's attention. And I mean, and when you're young, you love that humor, you love that music, the movies that are very anti everything, that's against the grain. Like back in the day, David Letterman was the host all the young people loved because he was very much against the grain. He was the punk rock guy. This is the punk rock comic, from DC Comics that people loved, and I can see that now. And like I said, there are pages in this that are just absolutely beautiful. They're beautifully horrific. And I'm at a loss for words for this issue.
Yeah, for me, this issue kind of stands up there with the anatomy lesson and the work that it does, not only from a narrative standpoint, but also just from a visual standpoint, because they do some really interesting things. But we kick off, and we have Abigail and Matt, and the last time we saw Matt in book one, he was in this terrible car accident that seemed like he was left for dead. And then we fast forward months later, he and Abigail are good. They're on good terms. They're fine. And out of nowhere, he's just kind of out of this depression. He's out of the slump of a human being that he had been. He's successful. He's purchased a home for them. He now has a job, which if you pay attention to his job, you should be asking questions, because he works for the Black River Recorporations Group, which what is Recorporations? But all these things are kind of coming into play, and even Abigail is questioning, like, how did we get here? Like, how did we get to this point? And she's trying to remember all these things and what changed. And what we're learning is there's something wrong with Matt, and at some point Matt stopped being Matt. And if you look back at the full history of Swamp Thing, you could probably say that a couple of times, but for a good reason. Matt Cable went through some shit.
Well, and not just that, but there's one thing that about Matt that Alan Moore just kind of like veered away from. Like, Matt had like this power to create things visually, whatever. But like, and Alan Moore just kind of like, whatever, we're going to show this briefly, but we're not going to do this again, because who gives a shit? No one really cares about Matt.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess you could say he kind of does it here, though, because he it's almost like he's got her in a glamour that what she's seeing isn't really what she's seeing.
Very true.
When he goes to his job and he's introducing her to all these coworkers and stuff, she keeps having flashes of like a dead body in the background, or a corpse, or a skeleton.
I love that page. It just the corpses look amazing. It just they're all dead in different ways. You can just tell how they all died in their own unique way. I love it.
But so she's kind of trying to come to terms with this and cope with this, but figure it out. And she's
I'm sorry, I'm gushing over this issue, but there's one page in particular, this one panel. If you look here in the mirror, like right there, if you look closely at his face, it's like, wait a minute, that looks very skullish.
Oh yeah,
it's that very subtle horror there. We got to look closely. It's like, wait a minute, is that what I think it is? And I love it.
But they're on the highs of everything. So he's got his job. They go to the house. She's happy with the house, and they consummate their relationship.
Yeah,
I mean,
they're playing
married.
that James Bond song. It's the all-time high. Yeah.
But I think it's after this that she starts to really question things, and as she's questioning things, and really beginning to realize that this isn't Matt, and she's trying to determine who this is, and as she's trying to come to terms with this, and she realizes she needs to leave the house to get to safety. Unfortunately, he is waiting for her with other people that he worked with, and that's when the big reveal comes about of what's been going on between these two and who he really is. And I will just say it's creepy as fuck, because
the first thing that came to mind is Ace Ventura when he's like Einhorn is a man, and he's just going through the whole, it just that's what comes. Yeah. Setting the clothes on fire. Yeah, this is worthy of that.
Crying in the shower. Why?
Yes.
Yeah. But yes, so it turns out that the spirit, the person that has taken over her husband's body and has been acting as Matt Cable, is none other than her uncle, Arcane. So this guy has knowingly been like playing house with his niece, sleeping with his niece. It's just gross, and you can see here the glamour's kind of faded. And it, as she's coming to terms, he is revealing like, yes, it is me, and yes, this is what's happened. And to their knowledge, he's dead. Like, they thought he died, and he did. We learn more kind of what's going on, what happens as we go through this issue. But he is, for all intents and purposes, back from the dead in Matt Cable's body. But that's why when you see her in that first page and she's slouched over and she's got the wound, it talks about her trying to cleanse herself from what she's been through and what she's experienced. And at one point, she feels like no matter how much shampoo or soap or whatever disinfectant she uses, she still feels like there is death on her. So she takes a wire scrub brush for pots and pans and then starts scrubbing her skin. That's where her skin is.
Yeah, like I said, this is the Ace Ventura moment. You're just doing everything you can to cleanse yourself of what the fuck happened. And yeah, it's just like when you realize that, it's like, no.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Jesus.
And this image cuts off his dialogue, but if you're wondering, he is actually saying "say uncle" to confirm. That's the line, is "say uncle."
Yeah.
So it's just kind of just wild. But it also kind of begins this downward spiral of him using her to then get to Swamp Thing. Because as we go through the story, we'll see. But I just remember reading this and being like, holy shit, I was not expecting this to go to incest in book 2. But okay, here we go. Especially with dead bodies and demons. And look, even the lead up to this, there's a lot of like kind of backstory things. Like when Abigail is at Matt's job, she meets one of his coworkers named Sarah something. And she's like, why does that name sound familiar? And she then discovers that that's the name of a dead person who was a serial killer, had murdered multiple people for no reason at all. And it's when Sally Parks. Sees that's Sally Parks. And when she sees that info on Sally Parks, that's what causes her to start going, wait, something's not right here, because I met this person and now things are connecting. But we have this realization that really puts her in a trauma, and Arcane kind of takes her over. And then, for all intents and purposes, he ends up killing her to get to Swamp Thing. Like, his whole point of being here is trying to get back at Swamp Thing, and it's kind of been this piece by piece dismantling of people that are close to her. So Abigail and Matt were friends of Swamp Thing, so they're friends of Alex, and we're trying to help Alex cope with becoming Swamp Thing, and you've got all that. But now we move into this where Arcane has taken over the body of Matt Cable and essentially taken his soul and killed him. And we'll touch on this a little bit more in a second. And he is now killed Abigail after leading Swamp Thing to the house. So when Swamp Thing comes to the house, they present it in a way like, oh, he's coming and he's going to make it in time to save her. And then you see him enter the door, and then it's another panel of the door being empty, and then him walking out with her dead body. And then you've got his dialogue here saying, how long has she been dead? And then you've got Arcane being just the asshole that he is, laughing. But it really kind of delves into just some of the darker elements we get here, and this fight that goes back to that first book when it started introducing all these supernatural elements within the story. There are things beyond the world as we see it, and they touched on it with the Green and also with Etric and the Demon, and the Monkey Prince coming, which the Monkey Prince wasn't my favorite aspect of that story, but if we hadn't gotten all of that, then I don't think this would have been as impactful or effective as it was.
Yeah, so you got to get your vegetables before you get your meat, and this is that delicious, savory prime rib, medium rare here. This is where it's so damn good, and you just see just how much of a soulless, deplorable piece of shit Anton Arcane is. Yep. And look, and people are embracing. If you haven't read it, we're going to hell. We literally go to hell in this series, and we learn that Anton Arcane, he escaped hell. That's how vile and messed up, jacked up this dude is, and that's how he's able to get to Matthew. Because
he gets to him as
we go there. I love it.
Yeah, he gets to him as they fly. He escaped hell as they fly. But yes, that's how he's here. And with this, I think seeing the death kind of triggers the essence or the reality of Matt within him, that there then becomes this internal struggle for who's going to control the body. So, Anton Arcane has essentially just possessed Matt. That's all he's done. So Matt starts fighting back, and Matt manages to free his spirit and kind of banish Anton Arcane, but it comes at the cost of his life. And what they're hoping they can do is that he can then give whatever remaining essence that he has into Abigail to bring her back to life. And it's one thing where it works, but it also doesn't work. Like, she starts breathing and her heart starts beating again, but her soul is still lost. And that's what he communicates here, is that there is no soul. And then he apologizes to Alec, to Swamp Thing, because what he was trying to do, what he was trying to accomplish, he has now failed. And we're jumping forward a bit, because there was a weird issue that comes in between these two moments that is kind of like, we had Crisis on, and we can talk about this. We had Crisis on Infinite Earths that was being teed up to come out, and it was supposed to be this huge thing. It's going to change all of DC's line. It's going to change continuity. But this creative team famously did not want to do anything with superheroes.
That is correct. Stephen Bissette, he vehemently hates superheroes with a passion. Like Stephen Bissette was talking to John Totleben, he's like, dude, I can't fucking do this. I can't draw the Flash, Green Arrow. Fuck this shit. You got to help me out. And so Rick had to talk him down from the ledge. It's like, okay, look, all right, hey, it's fine. I'll draw them. Don't worry. Don't freak out. It was just one of those moments where he just protested, like, I was not going to draw this shit, because they liked being in their own world. We got our horror, we got our guy. That's it. We don't want to get mixed in with this other shit. And they got it done. Yeah.
So they were forced to do a bit of a crossover, and what they ended up doing is to kind of show the power that Anton Arcane has, and the disturbance that he's able to cause by being present in our world. They have the Monitor recognizing the power and then questioning what's going on within Louisiana. They even have scenes of like Joker in Arkham Asylum, and he's now almost like he's been lobotomized. He can't think or focus. It's almost like the insanity has been sucked out of him, and there's nothing but a shell left. And it leads to a really insane altercation between Anton Arcane and Swamp Thing, but it's ultimately Matt that is the one that stops Anton Arcane and pushes through to gain control of his body again. But as I said, it comes at the cost. Well, what we think is the cost of his life, but it may not be so. But with this, Swamp Thing is left with Abigail, who, and it has been confirmed, she is alive, but she does not have a soul. And when he is looking into where her soul is, he's informed that it is trapped in hell. So as Drew said, we make our way to hell. And so she's there. She is living. She's got her heartbeat. It talks about how you can see her heartbeats. But we have to take a journey to hell. And look, I'm going to say I had a lot of fun with this because I love these characters. But Swamp Thing does not go at this alone. As he is going to hell, we find that he's going to have different guides through the gates of hell. So we have a series of moments with different DC characters, and it starts off with Dead Man Boston Brand, and then it leads into the Phantom Stranger, which then leads into the Spectre.
Yeah,
agreed. And
that splash page is so beautiful. Yes. I love it.
This whole transition from one character to the next is so interesting because every one of these characters serve a purpose, but also how and I can't remember. I'm trying to remember what Spectre refers to Swamp Thing. I'm wanting to say an element, an earth element,
an earth elemental.
Yeah, okay, that's what it was.
But I love how I love how he calls the Phantom Stranger brotherless one. I love that.
Yes. But yeah, I mean, you kind of get each of these characters and they play their own stake in this. And you've got Dead Man, which is leading them up to hell, but then he cannot cross into hell. And then you have the Phantom Stranger that can kind of cross two lines. But even he is admitting, like, we can't do this without the Spectre. The Spectre has to grant this in a way. And there's a bit of a tete-a-tete that goes on between Spectre and Swamp Thing
and Phantom Stranger, and then Phantom Stranger says, like, then what of Jim Corrigan, who is Spectre's human vessel, and that's what he was, so he gets a little chuckle out of that.
You get this, and it's a really interesting conversation, but you get this dynamic where they're talking about if someone is worthy to be brought back from the dead, because if they have died, then it was fate that has determined that they should be dead, like they should have died. And they're kind of going back and forth.
But if she's unjustly condemned in this case, which she was.
And she was. But and that is the case that both Swamp Thing and Phantom Stranger are making, is that she was unjustly condemned in this case. She was condemned by someone who doesn't have the right to condemn her. Mm-hmm. And Spectre still has this outlook of, yes, but she was condemned regardless, therefore she is dead, and if we bring her back from the dead, then her death was meaningless. And Phantom Stranger then presents, like, but what about Jim Corrigan, because he was dead and now he is back from the dead, which, if you don't know Jim Corrigan is Spectre. So Spectre was put into Jim Corrigan's body to serve as God's right hand of justice. Mm-hmm. And you have these two going, and then you see this, like, moment of just acceptance and amusement as the Spectre is like, you know, you were always my favorite, talking to the Phantom Stranger. And then he grants them passage. So you then have the Phantom Stranger leading Swamp Thing up to the gates of hell, at which point he says, I can no longer go with you. And the help at this point is now Etrigan, who Swamp Thing has met before, because he was in the first book dealing with the Monkey Prince. And, you know, there's this whole dynamic of, you know, will you help him? Can you? But yes, for a fee. And ultimately, it's really interesting because what Etrigan wants is life, and the life that he wants is a flower. And it's so, like, when you think about it from the context of Swamp Thing is a symbiotic plant. Etrigan is wanting life as a fee, and that life is a plant. But they go in, and then Etrigan's like, all right, I will show you the way. And then, even though he is meant to be a guide and kind of take him through, there are rules in hell that you must walk the path of hell alone. And Phantom Stranger's like, wait, but you can't actually be with them. Like, one has to walk the path of hell alone. And Etrigan is like, what are they gonna do? Send me to hell?
Yeah.
So
I
I was
love
like,
it. Yeah.
I will say, I also love that this Etrigan is not as sing-songy, rhymey as so many of the other people have written that character. Like, you have some rhymes.
You mean you didn't like Brian Azzarello's take where he was a musician?
No.
And,
Wasn't that Batman Damned?
yes, it was.
Yeah. Oh, God. And then I remember reading a version that Gail Simone did, and she was trying so hard to make him rhyme, and I was like, I just want to, like, you know, go swallow a bullet real quick. But no, this version works. And as you go through hell, you get to see so many different things. And I guess I can say there's a juxtaposition too, because you have dead men at the very beginning discussing death, the role of death, and the presence that, you know, of dead people left on Earth. And that's when Swamp Thing gets to see Alec Holland's spirit again. So we see him at the very, very beginning of the book, and we see him at this moment kind of like halfway through. But he also gets...
on top, sorry, real quick, creatively, I did want to say, this is where we see John Totleben, Stephen Bissette just go nuts creating monsters, creating the most like unimaginable demons you can imagine. The stuff that fuels nightmares are in this. So this is all an annual issue. This is Swamp Thing Annual number 2. It's a double-sized issue worth every damn cent, and they knock this out of the park art-wise, because it is just the stuff nightmares are made of. This whole issue.
Yeah. The kind of balance you get here, the mirror you get here, are the peaceful spirits, and then those trapped in hell. And the spirit of Alec Holland is a peaceful one. You also get to see his wife, which Swamp Thing chooses not to go see. And that alone was a really interesting conversation, because you have Alec telling Swamp Thing, go speak to her, because as far as Swamp Thing knows and thinks and feels, that is also his wife. And Swamp Thing goes, no, she doesn't know me. And it's just him. It's the realization and the humanity of him going, as much as I want to, she won't recognize me, and I don't want to live with the thought of her not know. Like, I want to live with the love that I know. But then the juxtaposition in hell, you get to see all these people that have been here in the past from this book, coming back into play. And you know, they're being tortured. Gosh, I can't think of his name now. The gray haired
Sunderland.
Yes. I started to say Sutherland. I know, and I'm like, it's not Sutherland. That's the actor. You have Sunderland here, and he's trapped in hell, and Alec kind of comes across him, and you have Sunderland like yelling at him and blaming him, and he's like, "Oh, it's your fault that I'm here." Well, Sunderland's being tortured by demons, and then as he's yelling, do you remember what happens to him as he's yelling this to Swamp Thing? Do you remember?
I'm looking at it right now. It was you sent me. Yeah. He's like, let's depart. Their worthlessness is clear. I love it. Look what the demon says.
So the demon gets irritated that Sunderland's yelling at Swamp Thing. So the demon just rips his tongue out.
Yeah.
So he can't speak anymore.
You see Swamp Thing just go, just a very human emotion, very human reaction from Swamp Thing down here.
But as they continue their path through hell,
this page, I love it. These three elongated panels. I wish you were showing the panels of this.
Well, I've got some.
You know what? Screw it. I got. There we go.
Yeah,
this art is fantastic. And honestly, if they were ever to do a black and white edition, this has earned a black and white edition, because I would love to see the pencils and inks of this.
Yeah. We've got Cannoli coming in here saying this part was done so well. It's so good. And that's the thing is, I mean, like, we're talking about, this character's going to hell. It's running into people that he's kind of like beaten that have now been condemned here. We're talking about all these crazy batshit things. It would be so easy to make this look like a joke and feel like a joke, and it never does. It feels highbrow the entire way through. And I think that's a combination. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, but the next page, that is the ultimate payoff, the biggest laugh. I love it. It's just
with Arcane.
Yes, I love it.
Pull it up.
Yes. So here is the page right here. It's Anton Arcane. He's back in hell. He's wondering how many years he's been back here. And Alan's like, Swamp Thing is like, years. It's been a day. And he's just like, what? No.
Yep. He becomes a little ankle. I love the fact because he literally bites Swamp Thing's ankle. So he has literally become an ankle biter. Is trying his best to hold on to Swamp Thing to help get himself pulled back to humanity, and is unsuccessful, at least for now. But this whole annual, this whole series of events is just crazy. Canoli's talking about how he pretty much read this entire run of books in a day. Like that's kind of what I was talking about when I sat down to read this again. Was part of me I was just tired. I'm gonna be honest, I was tired. So sometimes when you're tired, you're like, I don't want to do this. And then the moment I started reading, it was just like I flew through the book. So real quick before we continue, I do have to say hello to some folks. We have Zach's coming in with a Joshi. Hello, Zax. How are you? We also have Jana coming in. What's up, boners? She put it's banana time. But good to see you guys. Oh, we have Sassy in the house as well. What's up, Miss Sassy? She's giving Joshy and hard eyes. Kisses back to you. But ultimately, Drew, they do find Abigail, and they find her soul within hell, and he's able to get it and bring it back. But before we get back to present day, we have to then kind of understand part of the experience that Abigail has gone through during this time. And we get a crossover. Oh no, I didn't put it there. Shit. I missed the slide, but we get a crossover, which is essentially like the dreaming. And it's an introduction into the world of like the Sandman universe, because we have her and she's approaching these two houses, which if you're a fan of history and DC horror, these two houses, the House of Secrets and the House of Mystery.
Yep.
And two guides there. So she has her own guides, and her guides are Cain and Abel. And this was a really interesting thing. And I don't know if this was something that they did to help buy more time again to catch up on art or what. But you have half of a new story of Abigail kind of coming into this world to learn about the history of the Swamp Thing and how this essentially is not the first time, that it also happened in the early 1900s with the character. And we get a retelling and honestly a reprinting of House of Secrets number
92, I think. Is it 92?
I think so. I think you might be right. Where the very, very, very first original concept of Swamp Thing had ever come about.
Yep.
And,
drawn by the great Bernie Wrightson. Story by Lynn Wein. Yeah.
Yep. So it was their first take at the character, and they did that story. And then I think it was like a year or two later, they kind of brought the idea back and leaned into doing Alec Holland instead of the original character. But you have Abigail learning the story, and it's really interesting because she learns it and gets all these details, and even acknowledges with Cain and Abel that this is so similar to Alec, and they kind of talk about how stories are meant to repeat, history is meant to repeat. And then she comes back to present day, and they tell her, you have to live with this, but you can't tell anyone. And we then realize it's not going to be a problem because she can't remember. But it's also kind of weird because it's set up like there will be consequences here for this, and her not remembering. But an interesting segue, an interesting thing to republish a book. Again, I'm going to assume it's going to be based on.
At the same time, it's paying respect to what was told before, and it's putting it in continuity. You're saying that did happen, and you're establishing, there were prior Swamp Things before him. So there have been prior members of the Green before Alec Holland, which he's making it all fit, and good for him.
Agreed. Like there's all this talk of continuity, and is continuity important, and how do you do it, and what do you have? And I think this is Alan Moore kind of giving a master class of how it should be done.
Yeah, I mean, no, I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, and I'm absolutely certain Alan Moore respected the shit out of Bernie Wrightson, and he was not going to write off what Bernie Wrightson did. He was going to pay homage to it and say like what he did mattered and is in continuity.
Oh yeah. Now we do have an issue that comes between the annual and the dream sequence, and it's something that I admittedly purposely did not put a slide in for, because for me it just the reason it's here, and I'll be honest, I have people that love the issue, and I know people that absolutely hate it. I'm in the like I don't mind it, but it came at the absolute worst time, and
it comes right after this incredibly powerful issue, and you get this. It's like, wait, what? Honestly, if I were reading Swamp Thing monthly, and I had just finished that annual issue, I go to the stands. I'm so excited and jacked for the next issue. I pick this up. I'd be like, wait, is this
what
the right
fuck
issue?
is this? Yeah,
is this Swamp Thing? What's going on here? Did I just get punked? It's that jarring.
Yes. But it's an issue about Pog, which is a space creature that comes to Earth in a turtle shell, and it's honestly just a parable about how awful human beings are. I mean, so you have all these space creatures that they can't speak English, and the story's told from their perspective. And Swamp Thing's involved, but he doesn't really play much of a part. It's all about them just discovering Earth. Yeah. But they're trying to share the story of how terrible where they came from is, and what's going on, and why they're leaving, and why they're trying to find this safe haven. And then as Swamp Thing is trying to help them and learn to communicate, they start communicating with drawing pictures. But the moment Pog sees human beings, he's like, "Oh no, this is exactly what we tried to leave." But the shocking, like, terribly bad thing was like they were eating hot dogs and hamburgers, meaning they were killing animals and eating them.
Yeah.
But I was like, this just feels so weird and so out of place. And I mean, but it does. Like, it's one of those things. Like, it felt like it maybe would have existed in the original run, but not really.
Yes.
And then,
it really does. Yeah. After, like, I would say, after the first 10 issues or so, when it was kind of like meandering, I would say, like, this is where that fits.
Yeah. So yeah, it was a weird thing. There was one moment where I did feel bad for one of the little Pog creatures, because he's kind of like an alligator. He's like a cutesy, cartoony alligator shape. You can't see their full form because they're in spacesuits, but he's got a snout like an alligator, and he's walking kind of like a humanoid alligator. But he's looking for friends, and then he finds alligators in the swamp in Louisiana, and you can tell he's like, friends, and they eat him. So I don't know. It was a weird thing. It's cute in its own respects, but it was so out of place. And even in the collection, it's so out of place. I kind of wish they just put it at the end of the book if they were going to include it. But because again, you have this annual that is 44, 48 pages long of this of Swamp Thing traveling through hell. Mm-hmm. And then you immediately go to Pog for that random story. And then you immediately go back to kind of deal with the aftermath of, what's going on with these two and how they get here. We have, let's say, a three-peat showing up. What's up, dude? We're kind of rocking along. We're reaching the end of the book, but I guess I guess real quick, I don't know if you want to jump in on any of the stuff that happens earlier on, especially with like Abigail and
no, it's just creepy. It's unfortunate. I because with schedule conflicts and everything. But when I got to the line where Anton says "say uncle," I was like, "Oh."
Oh, you mean that one? Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. I was like, "Ooh."
Oh man, we talked about how creepy that was.
I will say, I think this is even though the what is it, the what's the name of that issue? what is it, the body problem or
the anatomy lesson.
the anatomy? I always screw that up. The anatomy lesson
Body
is probably one of the best retcons in comic history. I think
Agreed.
this volume is so much stronger than the first one.
Yeah, well, the interesting thing is, and this is what makes his whole run so seminal. And Drew, I'll let you kind of jump in on this as well, but he just continues to build on his narrative. So, like, it's never a situation of like, here's our 5 issues or here's our 6 issues, and that's our story arc, and now we're going to move on to a different story arc. He is telling a long form story, and that's why they call it Saga of the Swamp Thing. And we have characters like Sunderland who we haven't seen since like issue 2, I think, issue 3 of the first book that comes back, or at least first Alan Moore book.
Yeah, like 21 or 21.
Yeah, so you've got this huge like gap in seeing these characters, but they're still playing a role, and it's like it's him showing like no matter what we do in these pages, there will always be consequences that come out of it, and even when you think it's the end, it's not necessarily the end. But Sammy, we were just kind of gushing about the annual that has Swamp Thing going through hell, and kind of it's like a cameo of who's of different elementals, and just a fun process. But
it actually so I started I'm writing my own comic, and it's actually about hell, and I've been revisiting this issue quite a bit because like I don't want to copy, but like there was a couple things where I was like, ooh, I think I'll use that.
Full inspiration. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Like if you're going to look to do something and maybe how to do it, you always want to look to somewhere or something that's done it well. And I think this book has done it well.
Yes.
But we do kind of mention that he had this journey going through hell to save Abigail's soul. He does find her. He gets her soul back. And after she goes through her own journey of kind of having guides in Cain and Abel, she does come to, and she is reborn in all intents and purposes back in our world. And this is kind of where I was getting to what I mentioned at the very beginning, where I was like, we are making a point to say for certain that Swamp Thing is a plant. He is not human. There's nothing about him that is human. He is a sentient plant being. He has human memories from Alec Holland, but he is a plant. Because if the concept of crap, why can't I think of when you sleep with your family? Incest wasn't enough. We're now going to move on to I did have it. I just had it in the wrong spot. We're going to move on to the Rite of Spring, and I put Bow Chicka Wow Wow.
So I got some behind the scenes stuff on this.
Okay.
Yeah. So this all came from the art team to Alan. They told Alan through letters that, hey, look, think about this. If you've just come through hell, you're going to be stark raving mad. You're going to be she's probably going to be locked up into an insane asylum after what's happened. But if let's just have a nice leisurely issue where they're just enjoying their time together, and Alan Moore took that sliver of an idea and made the Rite of Spring. And this is where the art team, they wanted to make it a grand experiment and allow them to indulge their long-standing desire to emulate and honor the work of a rock poster underground comics tattoo artist, Greg Irons. So they took his art posters, and put it into this issue.
Nice. I will say the way they handle this issue is really interesting because they do it in a way. I mean, I think if you look at, look, it's comics. We see weird shit all the time, right? But this deals so much in identity and psychology that you can't help but try to look at it from a realistic perspective because of how the depth that these characters have. But you have an issue of them kind of discussing not only what happened, but what do these feelings mean that we have for each other? Like, are they real? How do we, express this? And they have the intimacy discussion, but really what happens is Swamp Thing kind of grows it's essentially a sweet potato, a yam, and he wants her to eat it. And they call back to when this happened in the first book, and it made her sick watching someone eat a piece of Swamp Thing. But she was like, if he's wanting me to do this, then there's a reason for it. So she does. And in her doing this, she then becomes connected with the green. And she is now the only human, maybe aside from Woodrow, that understands and experiences and sees things the way that Swamp Thing sees things. And if you think that the earlier pages in the book, from an artistic standpoint, are incredible and trippy and unique, you get into stuff like this, and it just like it for me, I was like, holy shit. It's almost like a psychedelic, vomit on the page, but in a good way.
Yeah.
Of what she's sensing and how she senses it. So any thoughts on her kind of getting in touch with the green and understanding what the green is, and then also recognizing the red and how it's different from the green, and understanding life, and then also understanding death from a different perspective than the human perspective?
It really sets up things to come, like in the New 52 later, years later, when you set up like not just the green but the red. And everything where it's like how like the red is life or whatever, a human like living things. But yeah, this people taking this stuff and just building upon it for later stories down the line. But hey, Josh, I gotta go. I got a heart out. Thanks for having me here, Samuel. You pick up for me. It's been fun tonight. Go sign up for Unholy Nightmare 2, guys.
Yes, I'll play that at the end. Don't worry, the trailer.
Later,
all right,
guys.
later, Drewski.
Take it easy, bud.
Sammy, do you have any thoughts on just kind of this? And like, did you have a weird reaction to it at first, and then kind of came to it, or was like just seeing?
No. One, I mean, look at this. This is just this comic splendor. This is it's just gorgeous. But yeah, I thought I love the concept of that, where you're seeing the life cycle from like a different set of eyes, and you're getting these like insanely deep concepts, and all on the spread, like on a full spread. You know what I mean? It was like, it was so deep. I enjoyed it immensely, and like I said, and the art is just phenomenal. You never see stuff like this in comics.
No.
Especially modern comics, but it was like this is really pushing the envelope here, and man, it is just so ambitious.
Yes. Super ambitious. I'm trying to see if I can get it pulled up for us so we can see more pages real quick. Because it's literally just pages of art like this. And here, let me get this going, and I can share. Maybe pause there. Yeah, there we go. So you can kind of see here that you've kind of got her with the yam, the sweet potato, and she's taking a bite. And then as she's like looking at him and kind of thinking about what she's eating, you see how she starts to view the world differently. So this is like a 2-page spread, and then it goes into another 2-page spread. And this is where you see it gets psychedelic, trippy. And this is where she starts understanding life, and she's talking about the reaches of what she can feel, and that she can feel plants, and she can feel what those plants feel, that she can feel the warmth of the sun on like the other side of the country, or the world, I guess I should say. So she's going through all this stuff, but then she also starts going into the page that we were going, that she can feel some of the negativity of things, of like things that eat other things, but they're not doing it out of malice. They're doing it for survival and energy, and you just have this just page after page after page of this type of artwork, and her coming to terms with realizing this, recognizing him for what he actually is. And I feel like if you didn't have any of this for her to understand Swamp Thing and how he sees and feels the world, then having that relationship between the two doesn't work.
Of course. No, it wouldn't.
I mean, like, sure, human things, and they even talk about like they bring up sex, like the sex of it all. So, but yeah, just beautiful freaking pages, and kind of like the experimentation that they did, going all the way back to Anatomy Lesson, where they would frame and panel these pages out in a way that was just uncommon or unseen for comics. They just continued that here and decided to go like, oh, if you thought that was good, then wait till you see this. And it's her kind of coming back to realization, and then you kind of get this jokey like, does this mean we're going out? And then they get the smoochies again. But yeah, just interesting stuff, crazy stuff, but definitely not bad. And I think Drew is spot on. When you go through all the shit that you just went through in this book, between Abigail realizing, like, going through her memory of trauma to realize that her husband is actually dead and that her uncle has possessed him as a demonic spirit, and then not only done that, but he has since slept with her multiple times. Like, when you're going through all that, and then having Matt essentially die, but he's not really dead, he's in a coma, and then having Abigail die, but then her body comes back to life and her soul's trapped in hell, and then the journey through hell, like, you need that reprieve of just like, okay, we need to take a breath for a second. So I agree, perfect way to end this book. Any thoughts just on ending it? And then I have a separate question for you.
No, I love that they ended it on that, where you have to, because her journey through this segment is insane.
Yeah.
And like, love has no borders, like not a bad way to end it out, kind of like that calm after the storm. And it's nice to see these characters be happy for a change,
Yeah.
There's I thought it was well needed, and man, and just even though not a lot happens in this, I was like, it from the panels and just how it's set up, it is just blocked so beautifully that it not only, because normally you'd be like, oh, this is kind of like a filler issue, right? No, this becomes a highlight of the volume.
I didn't get to ask you this, but we brought it up earlier. Do you have any thoughts on the Pog story? With the space creatures that come in.
Yeah, I thought it was cute. Like,
yeah.
I didn't hate it. I loved that little scene where they're communicating by drawing pictures with the stick. It seems fun. I know for a fact it was like to pay homage to a comic strip that I think
I think it's
Moore
like
enjoyed.
Pogos or something. It
was something like that. But when I was looking, when I was falling down that rabbit hole, apparently that was all about. It was a very environmentally conscious comic strip for, especially for back in the 50s. So I mean, even then, just lets you understand that, like, Alan Moore has a wonderful understanding of the medium, and. Yeah, no, I mean, this was funny. It was definitely not what I was expecting, but I mean, no. I love, you run into Etrigan, you run into Deadman, you run, that one scene in Arkham Asylum where the Joker stops laughing.
Yep.
And then you have this, and it doesn't feel out of place. It's just kind of like a weird one shot, but I didn't think it was bad. It was just like, we're kind of doing this now. Okay.
Right. It's just the fact that it comes on the heels of your journey through hell. And then you go into this, you're like, oh, okay. But yeah, here's where they were drawing pictures. So they can't communicate with language because they both speak different languages. So Swamp Thing speaks English, and these Pogs speak their own language. So to communicate, they start drawing pictures to show, like, we're friendly, and he's trying to explain where he came from. And then the little green guy at the bottom that kind of looks like a cartoony alligator, this is the one that I was mentioning earlier, that he's trying to go find friends. And then takes his space suit off, and you can tell he's kind of like a little alligator guy, and he's just trying to enjoy life. And then he sees that, oh, there's alligators, like our alligators, and yeah, he's trying to be cute and friendly and nice, and it does not turn out well for him, unfortunately, and he dies. But yeah, again, this too is kind of like a commentary, not so much on the environment, to a degree, sure, but almost just on human nature. And I think that's part of the reason it doesn't feel completely out of place is tonally, while it feels vastly different, the story itself touches on humanity, the good and the bad, which is so much of what Swamp Thing is this, deep dive and study into identity, and what makes us who we are. And this kind of covers that. But yeah, just a kind of soft, sweet little story. And yeah, but I do have to keep things a little brief tonight. Is there something that you read in this book that maybe you want to bring up real quick, like a plot point or a moment that you were like, for me, this stands out?
I really love when he runs into Arcane in hell.
Yeah.
He's like, how many years have I been down here? He's like, since yesterday.
Yeah, that was Drew's favorite moment as well. I'm gonna try to pull it up real quick.
Reminds me of an old like Irish curse that you give people. It was like, may your first day in hell last 1,000 years, and may your first day in hell be your shortest.
Oh yeah. 1 second, I'm almost to that area. Yeah. So let me get this removed and I'll pull this up. But yeah, kind of hard to see, but this is that moment where you got Arcane here. Wait, please, before you go, how many years have I been here? And he goes, since yesterday. And then Arcane's like, oh shoot, I didn't mean to. Oh,
yeah. Just like, oh. And I mean, it's no funny business. It was like they made his body like the nesting ground for insects, and I was like, this is some hardcore shit.
Which is fitting because he came back as an insect, so like originally to take over Matt Cable's body. But yeah, great moment. I think for me, like, because I always ask, what are the moments that you think of with this book? This for me is one of them. And just like the image of Abigail for that one cover of where she's like on the ground and she's got the wound on her arm from the wire brush. And like those two things I think are the ones that stand out to me the most. And then just the fun of romping through hell with Etrigan and Deadman and Phantom Stranger and Spectre, all characters that I love and that don't get enough credit. Look at this. We got Nadia coming. What's up, Nadia? How are you? Thank you for that $5 earlier. I appreciate it.
I also like the Blackwater when Matt's taking Abby to like visit his work, and she keeps getting flashes of something's wrong here.
Yes.
And so you're seeing all the coworkers, and then all of a sudden they're all like mutilated corpses, and I remember reading that for the first time and going, man, where is this going? And it did not disappoint.
No.
It still very out there though.
Yeah, Oh, go ahead.
No, I was saying, I mean, just even right there. I mean, it's so cool because they have the other pictures are like so unassuming. They're almost looking at her like, oh, what's wrong? She's
right.
You later find out that this woman is a serial killer who's been dead for 20
Sally
years.
Parks. Yeah. Dead for 20 years, killed people randomly for no reason. But Drew was talking about how he loved these kind of flashes. And he talked too about if you come here on this page and look at them as they're lying in bed together, if you look right here, you can see that the reflection of Matt is a corpse. So just little subtle things like that really make this fantastic. So, and then the fact that this whole issue is about her trying to revisit this trauma to understand what happened to her. And you've got insects. Like, as she's thinking of things, you constantly have insects there to show. I mean, like here, even this book of Sally Fields, you've got a spider there that's in the image. And then as she's remembering what actually happened, more insects kind of coming to show this like infestation of her, I guess, purity. Because she's had her uncle, which is a demon, possessing her husband and doing the dirty with her. Like, it's just wild. So, and again, great art, just showing the freaking chaos of this all. So
yeah, it's almost like the closest you can get to actually like illustrating pure emotion, like, you know, where you know, you can see the shape of things, but it's blurred and it's skewed and it's starting to warp, and like, it's just brilliant. And just to think that these guys were, you know, across continents, they were communicating, writing letters to one another, you know, and they were managed to come up with something like this.
Yep. I think the fact that they worked the way they did, I mean, because they've talked about how they wouldn't even call each other a lot of times because of how expensive it was. So they would end up they would write letters to send back and forth, and that's how they communicated, which is just wild. But you know, they were firing in all cylinders. They all seemed to kind of work well with each other. Whenever the artists had ideas, Alan Moore seemed open to it. And it really seemed like just a good relationship of storytelling. And then, just say uncle.
I was just like, oh, bro.
Yeah, bro. Why? But and then you've got, you know, his demonic form up here, and Anton Arcane's demonic form, half cricket, half demon in hell. Crazy stuff. But part of why this book is so freaking good, because they weren't afraid to go places. And that was the other thing that Drew brought up was, you know, this issue in particular was not approved for the Comics Code or by the Comics Code. And they were like, fuck it, we're going to do it anyways. Yeah. So, any last things that you want to bring up? I know you came in and we're ending shortly. I do appreciate you popping in and being here. But any final thoughts here with this?
No, like I said, I enjoyed this more than the first volume. The Monkey Man or the Monkey King thing really kind of like took me out of the last one. I thought this was solid start to finish. Even Pogs was fun. Like, you know, but the all the cameos were a much better fit.
Yes, better than like the Justice League and
which I mean that's cool and everything. I even the little nod to Crisis on Infinite Earths, that was cool. Where, you know,
the Monitor.
The Monitor and Harbinger, and you know, she's like, well, what are we gonna do? He's like, we're gonna watch. That's what we do. You know, that's
what they do for now. They get involved a little bit later. Yeah, that was a setup. You know, mandated. They had to kind of include it, but they made it work. That's an example of writers making it work well.
Yes.
So, but no. Again, I'm a huge fan of this book. I'm a huge fan of the series. I think it's revered for a number of reasons. But I think a lot of it was they weren't afraid to just go places with their storytelling. And you know, I think now you see a lot of creators that they start to go there, and then it's like then they start pulling their punches, and you get this kind of anemic, watered down version of what could be great. So I'm glad that at this time, when there was more scrutiny on comics and more of a kind of like a magnifying glass to what are you doing, because our kids shouldn't be reading these things, they really said, fuck it, we're going to do it, and did it.
And then they created something that I say arguably everybody should be reading these things.
Yeah. I mean, like there's a reason this series just year after year after year is always on like top lists of purchases, because it's relevant. I have my local comic shop. We do our own book club, and we've got a guy that teaches psychology for one of the local colleges, and he's in the group, and he has his kids read the first 2 books of Swamp Thing, and he'll have them read Watchmen, just to kind of show, like, one, don't ever judge a medium, by its cover or by what you might assume it is, but 2, to kind of prove, like, hey, you can do so many different things and find psychology in so many different things, and just kind of studying people and identities and what it means to be something. So it's always kind of cool to get that perspective in there as well. But go ahead.
Another thing that just occurred to me that I enjoyed. There's a lot of early concepts in here that Neil Gaiman would later go on to use for his Sandman
Yes.
series. You had Cain and Abel.
Yep.
She was obviously in the dreaming, even though they don't
Yep.
call it that. And there was so many things that stood out about this, where it was like, oh, it's that's how influential this run is, where
Yes.
you're getting things that actually lead to other awesome things. And they didn't even know, wasn't even a twinkle in Neil Gaiman's eye yet. Like,
No. Yeah, we brought this up earlier in the fact that you have Cain and Abel here, and let me get to where they show the houses, but you have the House of Mystery and the House of Secrets. So which we kind of discussed were 2 running titles at DC at one point in time. But yeah,
they're a horror comics anthology.
But just again, the things that Alan Moore was able to inspire, like, no matter what version you're reading or where, or you will find things that kind of harken back to this and this run, this saga of books. And that's another testament to just how great this series is. So if you haven't read it, you really need to go read it.
I really, you know what, I keep pushing it off. I know eventually I'm just gonna cave and buy the absolute of this.
No, that's what Drew has, and every time I see it, I'm like, fuck, I just need to go buy that.
I saw it the other day at my local shop, and I was just kind of like feeling like the felt cover, and I'm like, one day.
The art's different inside too, man. Like they
he showed us when we were doing it for it. It's like the recolors and all that. But I just picked this up because the price dropped on it. But I just got the Immortal Hulk.
Oh hell yeah! Is that Al Ewing's?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good run too.
I love what they did. I'm all the way, and I'd read parts of it too, but just to make the Hulk basically your strength is basically God's wrath. So that's that was and I love Alex Ross, and he did every cover in that series. So I always enjoy looking at that. So that's what I'm on, but man, doesn't hold a candle to that. Doesn't hold a candle to Alan Moore's.
But I will say it is something else that, in certain ways, feel like it was inspired by Swamp Thing. So.
Absolutely, that's kind of why I brought it up. It was like especially it was like because I don't want to spoil anything here. The Hulk goes to hell in this, and it is I was thinking about the same thing. I was like,
it's reminiscent.
Yeah.
We're gonna go ahead and wrap things up. Again, sorry this is short for you, and I do appreciate you hopping on after you finish your other stream. It means the world to me. Do you have anything going on with your channel that you want to share or promote?
No, not really. I have my regular shows. I have Cavecast every Saturday morning, and then in other news every Sunday night, and then every Tuesday you can find me on Leon's channel. We do Tinfoil Haters, but yeah, other than that, and yeah, apparently I'm writing a comic book now, So that's
that's a big undertaking. So
yeah, I have the first draft of the first issue all mapped out, and then it's also gonna kind of be an anthology series, but there is gonna be an overarching story. But I'll be happy to tell you about that after the show.
very nice. Yeah, you can share. Since we are talking about projects,
Argo.
didn't mean to click that yet. I do want to show this real quick. So it is the trailer for Drew's comic Unholy Nightmare #2. It is launching its campaign on June 6th. So less than a month, we'll get that launched. But to wrap up the night, we will watch this trailer real quick. So
In the dark streets of Chicago, a mysterious masked hero fights against the forces of evil. He is the Recluse and has a secret ally, a cop who goes undercover in the criminal underworld. Together, they face a deadly new threat, a drug that turns humans into monstrous creatures as they try to stop the drug trade. They discover a hidden realm of horrors that will test their courage and loyalty. Will they survive?
The Unholy Nightmare.
From the creators of the hit comic book series Born of Blood, Aurelio Mazzara and Dolan Waddick, comes a new action-packed adventure that will take you to the edge of your seat. Enter a world where superheroes and monsters collide and nothing is what it seems. Don't miss Unholy Nightmare 2, the comic book event of the year.
sweet.
Well, that looked metal.
Yeah. So Drew's been super busy. He's working with multiple different publishers right now and got a ton of stuff coming out. So excited to see Unholy Nightmare continue. And then with this second issue, they also have the backing for I guess the add-on for their backup issues. And I'm going to pull up this cover real quick because it's awesome and it's Voodoo. But the backup story for this features the origin of the character Gollum. And Voodoo does all the pencils and inks for this. And it's a black and white story that's an add-on. And it's done in the style of EC Comics. So they wanted to do something that kind of mimicked that. And I'm just going to say, this is the cover. Voodoo does the interiors. It's freaking beautiful. Wow. He finished this, like, it's been done for like a year. So super excited to see people get their hands on this because Voodoo is something that the story with Voodoo is he had actually sent Drew artwork as kind of like fan art of like, hey, I love the idea of this stuff and kind of drew this together. And Drew was like, dude, I will make that a cover. And it was featuring Recluse. And Voodoo was like, oh, no. If you're going to do a cover, then I'm going to do a better version of this. And then sent a quote unquote better version. And Drew made it one of his alternate covers for one of the campaigns. And kept a relationship going with him, has used him for other covers, used him for the interiors of this backup story, and kept him a secret for, I think, as long as possible. And then finally, when stuff started getting released, the cat got out of the bag. But there's stuff coming up with Voodoo with a major publisher. Can't really say anything other than that, but happy to see the start of him with Drew, with Dolan. So crazy stuff. For everyone that's tuning in, I will say thank you for coming to hang out with us. I know tonight is a little more brief than what we usually do. We had some people hiccups today that kind of squandered things and threw things off. But we will be back next time for sure. And we'll continue our run going through some good comics because it's nice to talk about stuff we love instead of stuff that's shit. We talk enough about stuff that's shit because it's all around us all the time. That this has become one of my favorite things to do is just kind of go through books that we absolutely love. And we'll get the gang back together again in a month. I haven't decided the book yet because I'm pretty sure we need to do a Marvel book, and I've got Joe Corallo is wanting to do something Captain America related, so I'm going to partner with him and see maybe what he wants to do, and then we'll bring that in. with the gang. But other than that, I will say make sure you tune back in on Thursday, because this Thursday, Drew and I will be back to discuss this week's new releases for our new show, Floppy Drop. So here we'll be covering the releases from tomorrow, Wednesday, May 14th. And next week we should have an episode of Culture Popped on Tuesday. So I should have Aaron, Drew, and I talking about various pop culture things. A lot of studios are doing their upfronts this week, so we should have plenty of talking points for movie and TV going into next week. And then the week after that, we will be in Dallas for Dallas Fan Expo. So I will be posting some live photos and pictures, probably for some things for everyone, some things for members. I'm going to try to see if I can get some quick interviews or comments from actual creators that are there. And for the show itself, we will have an episode of graphic content that I'll pre-record and put up to review a book. And we will be kicking things off with Daniel Warren Johnson's Transformers, the first volume. So that'll be the book that we cover for graphic content next week. So if you want to read it, you have, or 2 weeks, I should say. If you want to read it, you have 2 weeks to pick it up, read it. It's a fun run, so go check it out. Sammy, any final thoughts before we wrap up the night?
No, but I love the name Floppy Drop. That is
right. So we go through books. Hold on, I got to do this because I'm so amused with it. But we talk about like the book and if we should drop it in our bag and take it home with us or drop it in the bin. And then we have clips. We have clips like this.
Perfect. It's perfect. It's perfect.
We might have something like this.
Why does somebody not know how to flush a toilet after they've had a shit?
That's what me.
Well, it was fucking one of yous. Disgusting!
You know, and then if it's a good book and we like it, we might have something like this.
I want that.
Nice.
But yeah, it's just a fun way for us to talk about the current week's comics, and it kind of goes hand in hand with one of our other shows that we do monthly called Top 5, and so it's a nice build up. People will know what we've liked and disliked, and then it'll be a conversation of like, all right, which one of these will end up on the top 5? But so make sure you come back, hang out with us on Thursday as we talk about this week's releases. We'll be doing our due diligence to read as much as possible tomorrow and like Thursday on our lunch breaks before we come live. So. Until then, we will see you guys Thursday night. Stay nerdy. I've got to find my out. There we go. Got to find my outro clip, and we'll talk to y'all soon. Peace out, guys.